What do you do when your own wife kisses another man in front of a room full of friends, looks straight at you, and jokes that you should divorce her then if you do not like it? How far can she twist the story afterward, telling everyone that you overreacted and ruined the wedding, before you quietly decide to take her at her word? This outline follows how I let the public moment stand, gathered what it meant, and used only legal steps to answer the joke she thought would never land. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Ivo Marin, and when I look back now, I can see the exact evening when the ground under my marriage started to feel less like a home and more like a stage. At the time, it just looked like a normal weeknight in our small apartment kitchen. The overhead light hummed softly, dishes dried on a rack by the sink, and Leah stood in front of the mirror on the side of our fridge, turning slightly to see how her dress caught the light. She said that the dress needed a few more pins at the waist if she wanted it to look right at Celine's wedding. I had just come home from the office, still in my work shirt, but I held the small box of pins like it was important. I pinned the dress carefully as she instructed, while she talked about colors and flower arrangements and how the photos had to look perfect, because this wedding would be all over her social media. She added that it was good I had finally agreed to spend a little more money on outfits, because she did not want to look like a background extra standing next to me. She called me her steady prop and laughed in a way that was half joking and half sharp. After we finished with the pins, I moved to the table where my laptop waited, still open from the budget plan I had started the night before. Lines of numbers and short notes filled the screen. Travel to the community center, cost of gifts, dry cleaning for my suit, small extras like makeup and hair appointments. I told her that I was just trying to keep our spending under control so we would not feel the wedding for months afterward. She rolled her eyes in the reflection and said that sometimes she felt like she was married to a calculator. I did not answer right away. I just typed one more line into the spreadsheet and tried to make my voice calm when I said that careful planning gave us space to enjoy events instead of worrying about bills later. While I was adjusting a column, a small notification appeared in the corner of the screen. The cloud icon said that a file was uploaded successfully. The folder name was simple, Archive A. It was nothing dramatic, just where I kept small notes and personal records that I did not want to lose. The words glowed quietly and disappeared, but I noticed them. On the fridge beside me, our calendar hung at a slight angle, covered in colored squares for school events, doctor visits, and work deadlines. On my phone, another reminder slid across the top edge of the screen. Office Tower, 3:30 p.m. Meeting. Personal. I had set that one weeks before, when I first started wondering if I should talk to someone neutral about how to protect myself and Mila if things ever went badly. Seeing it now, in the middle of Leah's excitement about dresses and photos, made me feel like I had two lives pressed together in the same limited space. I tapped the reminder away as soon as I heard Leah's footsteps behind me. She stepped closer and looked over my shoulder, not at the numbers or the reminder, but at the small preview of her own reflection in the laptop's dark frame. She asked if I thought she would outshine the bride, and then said that was probably fine, because Selene did not care about attention the way she did. I said that I thought she would look beautiful, and that the wedding was about Selene and Jonah, not about us. She told me that only boring people believe that. Her tone came wrapped in a smile, but the words still slid under my skin. Later that evening, my mother called. I put the phone on speaker while I cleared some space on the table. Rena had heard about the wedding and wanted to know if we were ready. She told Leah that she would love to see pictures and mentioned, in a soft warning way, that weddings often bring out strong emotions and old tensions in people. She said that the important thing was to remember who you were truly standing beside when the music stopped. Leah laughed politely and told my mother that she should relax, that it was just a fun weekend and that we were not going to war. After we hung up, Leah said that my mother always liked to make things heavy and that if I listened to her too much, I would never have any fun. I rinsed my cup and said nothing, but I replayed the phrase about remembering who you were standing beside. Later still, after we put Mila to bed and the apartment grew quiet, I walked past the shelf where we kept our documents. The binder labeled household stuck out slightly farther than the others. When I pulled it closer, I could feel that it was heavier than it had been a few months ago. Inside, there were the usual utility bills, old rent receipts, and notes about repairs. There were also a few extra pages now, a list of shared expenses from years back, small agreements Leah and I had written when money was tight, and some loose notes that belonged more to my memory than to any official record. I slid a small sticky note inside the front cover and wrote just 2 words on it, Wedding Weekend. Then I closed the binder again and pushed it neatly back into place. In our bedroom, Leah sat on the edge of the bed, scrolling through her phone, thumbs moving quickly. A soft blue light washed over her face. I changed into a t-shirt and sat on my side, watching our daughter's drawings taped to the wall opposite. A simple house, 3 smiling faces, a sun. I realized that in every drawing, the 3 figures stood in a tight line, holding hands. It made me wonder when, exactly, Mila had drawn those, and whether she would draw them the same way now. Leah told me that Celine's group chat was planning a funny game for the reception, that there would be dares and jokes between the bridesmaids and groomsmen, and that I should not become tense if I did not understand everything. She said she would never forgive me if I spoiled the mood by acting like a school principal. I answered that I trusted her judgment and that I just wanted the day to be peaceful. When she finally put her phone on the nightstand and went to the bathroom, I reached for mine. The screen lit up my side of the bed, and a small preview appeared at the top. It was from a thread I had labeled follow-up, with a simple message that said they hoped my earlier questions had been helpful and that we could talk more whenever I was ready. I stared at the preview for a moment, feeling a strange mix of shame and relief. Then, as I heard Leah's footsteps returning down the hall, I slid my thumb across the screen and cleared the notification before the message fully opened. I set the phone face down and turned off the lamp. The room dropped into darkness, but my mind stayed bright, replaying Leah's laughing warning about jokes and my mother's calm voice saying that weddings could show you who people really were. The next morning, I walked into the open plan office at the construction supply company and felt the small shift in air that happens when people stop talking just a little too late. I set my bag down and opened my computer, but a coworker reached my desk first with his phone in hand. He said that Leah's friends had posted some funny clips from the last bridal rehearsal night and asked if I had seen them. On the screen, I saw Leah in a crowded bar, sitting on Trent's shoulders while someone filmed. The caption called him her practice husband for the weekend, with laughing emojis. People around laughed, not in a cruel way, but in a way that still burned. I told myself that Leah liked dramatic jokes and that I had known this about her since the beginning. I told my coworker that she enjoyed having fun and that it was all part of the party. Later, my manager, Martin Clay, walked past my desk and paused. He did not hold his phone up. He only asked in a calm tone if everything was okay at home, because he had seen some posts that involved my name and our clients followed some of the same accounts. He said that people could draw wrong conclusions from half-funny, half-serious jokes online, especially when they involved weddings and talk about having more than one husband. I felt my face grow warm, but I kept my voice level. I told him that my wife liked to joke and that we would keep our private life from spilling into work. He nodded and said he trusted my judgment, but that it would be wise to stay aware of how stories traveled in a small city. During my lunch break, the office buzz quieted down. I opened a new sheet in my personal folder, not in any company directory. I titled the file with just today's date and wrote a few short lines. Bridal bar night, post of Leah on Trent's shoulders, caption calling him practice husband, friends tagging both of them. I added that the post had comments from people we both knew, some of them clients. I did not write any emotions into that file. I just recorded who did what and when. Then I saved it into the folder named Archive A. A small cloud message appeared again. File uploaded successfully. It was such a small phrase, but it made the data feel less like anxiety and more like something solid. In the afternoon, as I checked delivery schedules, my phone vibrated with a call labeled private. I silenced it, because I do not talk much on the phone at my desk. Later, in the break room, I put my headphones on and called back. The voice at the other end was professional and calm, thanking me for reaching out earlier and asking if I wanted to book a follow-up time to discuss possible next steps regarding separation or custody if I ever needed them. I listened more than I spoke. I said that at this point, I only wanted to understand my options, that I was not planning anything yet, and that I would never use the law to hurt anyone. The person said they understood and reminded me that information was not the same as action. When we ended the call, there was a faint beep in my ear as the app saved the log. After work, Leah suggested that we stop by the supermarket with Mila to buy snacks and small gifts for the wedding weekend. She said that she wanted to arrive well prepared and not look cheap. The fluorescent lights inside the store buzzed, and the tiled floor squeaked under the cart wheels. At first, we moved through the aisles together like any other family, picking up basic things, bread, juice, fruit, a simple gift box. Then the items began to change. Leah added more packs of luxury chocolates, small bottles of expensive drinks, decorations she said would look cute in pictures, and beauty products she insisted she needed to look wedding ready. When I quietly reminded her, near the shelves of snacks, that we still had a limit if we wanted to pay all our bills comfortably this month, she gave me a look like I had spoiled something bright. She told Mila, in a loud, playful voice, that Daddy liked to act like a bank manager, and that if he could, he would probably charge her interest on smiles. A couple nearby turned and smiled awkwardly, unsure if they should laugh. I kept my tone even and answered that I just did not want us to end up stressed after the party. Leah shook her head and said that it was sad to be married to someone who feared a little fun so much. At the checkout, the belt was full. The cashier scanned item after item, building a long line of numbers on the small display. Mila stood between us holding a small pack of stickers for herself. She asked if we were happy about the wedding. I told her that I was happy Celine was getting married and that I was sure there would be nice parts of the weekend. Leah said that it would be the best weekend ever if nobody ruined it with serious faces. When the total showed on the screen, Leah patted her purse, then suddenly said that she had to answer a call from one of the bridesmaids about shoes. She stepped away with her phone pressed to her ear, leaving me in the full cart at the register. I paid with my card, feeling the weight of the payment in a way that had nothing to do with the number. As the cashier handed me the long receipt, I placed it on the counter and took a quick photo of it with my phone before folding it and slipping it into my wallet. It was a habit now, like fastening a seatbelt. On the walk back to the car, Mila held my hand and asked if Mommy really had a practice husband for the weekend, like she had said in the video. She looked up at me with serious eyes. I told her that sometimes adults made bad jokes and that they did not always understand how their words sounded to children. I added that in our family there was only one father and one mother, no matter what people joked about online. She did not say anything else, but she pressed her hand tighter around mine. When we reached the car and loaded the bags into the trunk, Leah finally finished her call and rejoined us. She opened her phone to check the time and laughed suddenly. A new message from the bridal group chat had appeared, showing a photo of Trent flexing his arm while Leah hung on it at the bar, with Celine's friend writing that the practice run before the real show had been perfect. Leah read it out loud and said that people needed to relax and enjoy life more. I stood there between the open doors, feeling the cool air of the evening touch my face, and watched her smile at the screen. Somewhere far under that moment, something in me began to shift from hoping this was just a phase to understanding that I might need to remember everything very clearly. The morning of the wedding came with that strange mix of excitement and tension that sits between people who are not as close as they used to be but still share the same bathroom. Leah woke earlier than usual, moving around the bedroom like a stylist in a showroom. She laid out her bridesmaid dress on the bed, arranged her shoes, jewelry, and makeup in careful lines, and told me that I should not be late because she did not want to walk into the church without a husband beside her. The way she said it made me think she wanted the picture of a complete family more than the feeling of one. I ironed my shirt in the kitchen, the hiss of steam covering some of the anxious thoughts in my head. Mila sat at the table eating cereal, kicking her legs, and asking little questions about weddings that had simple answers. She wanted to know if all weddings were like the ones in her cartoons, and if the bride and groom always danced in the middle of the room while everyone watched. I told her that this one would be special because it was for Auntie Celine, and that we would all try to make their day peaceful. I almost said drama-free, but I stopped myself. On the fridge, the calendar square for that day had a small note in my handwriting. Celine's wedding, Community Center, 2 p.m. My phone buzzed on the counter and lit up with another reminder. Office Tower, 4 p.m., meeting, personal. Scheduled for later in the week? Not that day. I stared at it for a second, then tapped it away. It felt like I had placed two futures beside each other and was pretending I only saw one. We arrived early at the community center. The hall had been transformed with white chairs, soft fabric, and flowers that smelled faintly sweet. I watched Leah join the bridesmaids, fitting naturally into their circle of laughter. She moved with the comfortable energy of someone who knew exactly how to fill a camera frame. I stood near the entrance with Mila, who gripped my hand tightly when the music started and the wedding party walked down the aisle. When Leah passed by our row in her dress, she flashed a bright smile that looked like it belonged in a magazine more than in real life. For a few minutes, everything did feel simple. Celine came down the aisle, Jonah's face softened, and people wiped their eyes. I let myself believe that maybe the night before had just been nerves and showmanship. The ceremony ended without trouble, rings were exchanged, vows were spoken, and there was a brief moment at the end when everyone cheered and clapped. Leah and the other bridesmaids moved to the front for photos. I took Mila by the hand so she would not knock anything over and stood off to the side, watching. Leah's smile in the official pictures was bright, but when she glanced over at Trent and made a joke I could not hear, the photographer laughed in a way that suggested he had heard hints of this before. The reception moved to the community center's large hall and then spilled outside into a small garden patio and smoking area. Tables were set with simple decorations, and the DJ played songs that were upbeat without being aggressive. For a while, things stayed normal. People clapped when Celine and Jonah danced their first dance. They clinked glasses, raised toasts, and told stories about the couple. I sat with Mila at our assigned table, watching Leah float from group to group, collecting praise. As the evening deepened and more drinks found their way into people's hands, the mood shifted. I noticed Leah spending more time near the bar where Trent stood talking with some guests. She leaned against the counter, laughing at something he said, her hand resting on his arm longer than seemed necessary. A few times, she caught my eye across the room and gave me a playful look, as if she wanted to see what I would do. I did nothing. I sat with my water, answered Mila's questions about the songs, and tried to focus on Selene and Jonah. Later, when the DJ announced a short break inside, many guests drifted out into the garden patio. Strings of lights hung between trees and the low fence, giving everything a soft glow. The air was cooler there, mixing with the smell of cigarettes and cut grass. Someone turned the music up a little bit, and small clusters formed. Friends, relatives, co-workers. Leah was right in the center of one, with Trent by her side. I joined a quieter group near the edge of the patio, close enough to see her, but far enough not to be pulled into their circle. People had drinks in their hands and a looseness in their posture that only comes after a long evening. Then someone shouted that the bridesmaids and groomsmen needed to do one more fun thing for the newlyweds. A few voices picked it up. They said it should be a dare, something legendary that people would talk about later. The suggestions bounced around for a moment, harmless at first. Then someone called out that Leah and Trent should kiss for good luck, because they had been the stars of the rehearsal nights. Laughter rose and swirled like smoke. Others chimed in, pushing the idea along. Trent shook his head half-heartedly, looking both amused and nervous. Leah covered her face with her hand in fake shock, then dropped it and smiled. She turned her head toward me, found my eyes across the patio, and held my gaze. For a second, there was silence between us that cut through the noise. I thought she might wave the suggestion away. Instead, she stepped closer to Trent, closed the gap, and kissed him in front of everyone. It was not a quick, embarrassed peck. It was long enough for people to cheer and raise their phones, long enough for someone near them to shout that this would get 1 million views, long enough that my fingers tightened painfully around the glass I was holding. When she pulled back, she still had her eyes on me. She laughed loudly and told the group that if I did not like it, I could just go ahead and divorce her. The words slid through the warm air like a blade wrapped in velvet. People laughed. Some looked away, unsure. I felt the world slow down for a moment. I heard the clinking of ice in glasses, the click of heels on stone, the snap of a lighter somewhere behind me. I saw, even through the blur, how many phones were pointed in their direction. There was a bright flash as someone took a photo, catching Leah and Trent mid-laughter, with me a few steps away in the background, slightly out of focus. The image showed a man with a glass in his hand, standing in a crowd where everyone else seemed in on a joke he had not agreed to. That frame, I knew, would not stay on that phone for long. It would travel, multiply, and pick up captions that did not come from me. I did not shout. I did not march across the patio or demand anything. I set my glass down carefully on the nearest table, feeling my heartbeat in my throat, and walked inside. The change from the warm, noisy patio to the cooler, dimmer hall made me feel like I had stepped underwater. I found a small corner near the kitchen doors, where servers moved in and out, busy with trays. I took a few slow breaths and thought about Mila sleeping at my parents' house that night, safe and unaware. I thought about the budget spreadsheet on my computer, the household binder, the archived files. On a side table, I picked up a folded program with the order of events and, without really planning it, took a pen from my pocket. I wrote the date, the approximate time, and a few words to remind myself who had been standing where. I wrote patio, kiss, phones, divorce joke. My hand shook a little, but I made the letters clear. Then I folded the program again and slid it into my jacket. It felt thin, but heavier than any paper I had carried in a long time. The rest of the reception played out like a fuzzy recording I half remembered. I stayed until it was polite to leave, congratulated Selene and Jonah with as steady a voice as I could manage, and thanked them for inviting us. Selena's smile did not quite reach her eyes when she looked at me. I could tell she had seen what happened and did not know which side of the story she was supposed to stand on yet. When we finally left, the night air in the parking lot felt sharper, as if the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. The next day, there was a family lunch at a restaurant arranged by Leah's parents. They said it would be a relaxed way to decompress after the big event. The long table was crowded with plates, glasses, and tired faces. Claudia sat with her back straight, bracelets clinking as she waved her hands while talking. Darren looked like a man who wanted to be anywhere else but saw no way to leave. It did not take long for the wedding to come up. At first, they talked about the ceremony, the food, the music. Then Claudia mentioned the patio moment with a wide smile. She said that everyone had loved Leah's joke, that it had been the highlight of the night, and that people were still messaging her about how brave and fun her daughter was. She described the kiss with a level of detail that told me she had watched several videos. She said that modern marriages needed this kind of lightness, that people like me took everything too seriously. I said, as calmly as I could, that watching your wife kiss someone else while the whole party cheered was not light, not for the person sitting in the audience. I added that hearing the word divorce used as a punchline in front of dozens of people did not feel like a joke when you were the one married to the comedian. Claudia rolled her eyes and said that I was making a story out of nothing, that I should be proud I had such an attractive wife who got attention. She told me that only insecure men feared a simple dare. Leah leaned back in her chair and said that if I truly loved her, I would understand that she was just wild sometimes, and that nothing she did on a dance floor or patio changed how she felt at home. She repeated that it was all just a bit of fun, that if I had joined in and laughed, people would have forgotten it by morning. I told her I doubted that, given the number of phones in the air. She laughed and said that I sounded like her father, not her partner. The words settled around the table like small, sharp stones. Under the table, my phone vibrated. I glanced down and saw a preview from the follow-up thread. It said that they were available to discuss options whenever I felt ready, and that they understood I might need time. My thumb hovered for a moment, then I locked the screen without opening the message. I did not want Leah's sharp eyes to see the name or the tone. I wanted to hear what everyone at that table truly believed before I decided what any of it meant. After lunch, when we returned home, I felt heavier than when we had left. Leah went straight to the bedroom to lie down for a nap, saying that emotional weekends exhausted her. I took Mila to the park playground near our building. The sky was pale gray, and there were only a few other families there. She climbed the ladder, slid down the slide, and swung her legs until she slowed on her own. She came over to sit beside me on the bench, pulling her small sketchbook from her little backpack. She drew a simple house, then 3 stick figures outside it. At first, she connected their hands, just like in her old drawings. Then she paused, erased the lines between the parents, and drew herself in the middle instead, arms stretched wide. She frowned slightly as she concentrated, then held the drawing up. She asked if this was what our family looked like now, and if what Mommy said about divorce meant that she would have 2 houses like a girl in her class. I felt something tight gather in my chest. I told her, carefully, that Mommy had used a serious word as a joke in front of people who did not fully understand our life, and that sometimes adults forgot how their words sounded to children. I said that no matter what happened between the 2 of us, she would always have a mother and a father who cared about her. She asked if that meant we would stop making each other sad. I did not have a clean answer, so I told her that I would do my best to make sure she felt safe, even when adults were being foolish. On the walk back to our building, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice sounded tighter than usual, with that controlled calm she used when things were serious. She said that someone had sent her one of the wedding videos, and she wanted to hear from me whether what she had seen was real. She described Leah and Trent on the patio, the cheering group, the line about divorce. Then she asked the question slowly. She wanted to know if Mila had been there or heard any of the talk about divorce. I looked at my daughter walking a few steps ahead, her drawing tucked under her arm, and realized that I had reached the point where pretending things would fix themselves was its own kind of choice. When my mother asked whether Mila had seen any of it, I told her that our daughter had been at my parents' home during the wedding itself, but that she had heard the word divorce later and had already drawn a picture that looked more like a broken bridge than a family. My mother went quiet for a moment and then said that in her view, doing nothing after such a public humiliation would teach Mila that this was normal. She said that calm and silence were not the same thing, and that sometimes a person had to choose which kind of example they wanted to set. When the call ended, I walked the last stretch to our building behind Mila, watching her small shoulders move under her backpack. I understood then that I had crossed from hoping into deciding. A few days later, I drove to the tall office tower where my personal meeting was scheduled. The underground parking garage smelled of oil and concrete, with fluorescent lights that made everything look slightly washed out. I sat in my car for a while with the engine off and my hands on the steering wheel. On my phone, the calendar entry glowed faintly. Meeting, personal, office tower, 10:00 a.m. I thought about Leah on the patio, about laughter and screens and that sharp sentence she had thrown across the space. I thought about Mila on the park bench, asking if we now looked like her classmates' family. Then I stepped out of the car and went inside. The lobby was busy but quiet, full of people who looked like they were dealing with all kinds of invisible storms. I checked in at a reception desk and then sat on a bench under a plant, feeling the cool air and the slight echo of footsteps. When my name was called, I went into a small room with neutral walls and a simple table. The person on the other side had a notebook and a calm expression. They did not seem surprised by anything I said. I explained, as evenly as I could, what had happened over the last weeks, how the wedding kiss was not an isolated moment, but a point on a line of public jokes and private dismissals. I said that I did not want revenge, that I did not want to hurt Leah or drag anyone through mud, but that I could not ignore what this meant for my dignity and my daughter's view of relationships. The person listened, then explained some basic things in simple terms. They talked about separation, custody, temporary arrangements, and financial responsibilities. They said that the law did not care about jokes, but did care about patterns and the best interests of the child. They pointed out that my calm behavior and records could matter more than any loud scene in a garden. I asked questions, wrote down a few key phrases on a small sticky note they provided, and repeated that whatever I did, it had to be legal and as gentle on Mila as possible. When the meeting ended, we shook hands. I left with no visible envelope in my hand, just that sticky note in my pocket where I had written 2 words in my own handwriting: bring forms. Back in the parking garage, I sat in the car again with the door closed. The quiet down there felt heavier than the quiet of our apartment. I opened a recording app on my phone and spoke softly into it, describing the wedding date, the patio scene, the exact wording of Leah's joke, and the lunch where her mother told me I should be proud that my wife kissed someone else. I mentioned Mila's question at the park and my mother's call. When I finished, there was a faint beep as the app confirmed that the memo had been saved. I connected the phone to a small USB stick and transferred the file. Then I took a pen and wrote only the date on a small label stuck to the side of that USB. It looked innocent enough, like a piece of storage any office worker might carry. At home that week, life looked almost normal on the surface, but felt completely different underneath. Leah resumed her routines with a louder edge. She started going out more often to decompress with friends who had loved the wedding joke. She posted pictures of herself laughing at bars, writing captions about being too wild for fragile egos. When I asked in a careful tone if we could talk about boundaries, she told me that she was tired of being policed by someone who could not take a dare. She said that if I wanted a quiet wife, I should have married someone else. I did not raise my voice. I just repeated that what happened on that patio had crossed a line for me and that we needed to make sure our daughter did not become the audience for our fights. In the evenings, after Mila was asleep, I sat at the small desk in the living area with my laptop open. On the screen, I built a simple file tree: home, auto, bank. Inside the home folder, I created 2 subfolders: Archive A and Archive B. I moved copies of screenshots, receipts, and notes into them. I kept the file name simple, only dates and short markers. A Cloud Sync message popped up again. File uploaded successfully. It felt almost like a witness. I slid printed versions of the most important items into the household binder behind the sticky note that now read "Bring forms" in my own plain handwriting. When I closed the binder, it looked like any other stack of bills and records. One night, Leah came home late, the stairwell filling with the smell of smoke and perfume when the outer door opened. I was standing on the landing near our apartment, taking a garbage bag to the chute. She walked up the stairs still talking into her phone with someone from the bridal party, laughing that her husband was still sulking about a party kiss. She said that some men needed a lawyer just to manage their feelings. I heard a faint movement behind one of the other doors. Ms. Havel's peephole had its subtle glint. Leah finally ended the call and faced me. She asked in a mocking tone if I was still planning to look sad forever or if I was ready to pretend it never happened. I told her, in a voice that surprised even me with how steady it sounded, that I was done pretending and that I would handle all of this properly. I did not raise a finger or step closer. I just said the words. At that precise moment, my phone in my pocket vibrated with a small alarm that I had almost forgotten I set. I pulled it out and saw the label on the screen. Paper drop. Leah glanced at it and then at my face. For a heartbeat, her expression shifted from amusement to something closer to doubt, especially when she noticed the thin line of light at Ms. Havel's door. Then she rolled her eyes and said that I loved drama more than she did, even if my style was boring. She went inside, letting the apartment door close a little too hard behind her. The day I took her wedding joke at full face value, the sky above the courthouse was clear and colorless. I stood in the lobby with my hands in my pockets, listening to the echo of shoes on the polished floor. Security gates beeped occasionally as people passed through. On my phone, the calendar entry for courthouse 9:00 a.m. glowed at the top of the screen. The message thread called Follow-Up sat archived in the background, its last note confirming that all necessary documents had been filed a few days earlier. I had come alone. Mila was with my father at their apartment, decorating cookies. I had decided that she did not need to see the inside of this building. I waited near a row of benches, watching the glass doors. Leah arrived a few minutes later with Claudia on one side and a close friend on the other. She wore a coat over a bright dress, eyes already sharp and alert. I could hear her voice before I saw her face clearly. She told her mother that she was finally going to stop me from playing the victim and from collecting files, like some kind of cold accountant. Claudia agreed loudly and said that it was time someone taught me I could not attack their family with rules. They did not notice me at first. A person in a simple uniform stepped forward from near the security desk, holding a thick envelope. They asked Leah to confirm her name. She did, with the bored confidence of someone who thought this was another formality she could bend to her story. Then the envelope passed from one hand to the other. For a moment, the lobby felt even quieter. Leah opened it right there, in full view of whoever happened to be passing. I watched her eyes move down the first page and saw the shift when she reached the part that described the wedding, the kiss in the garden patio, the recorded words telling me to divorce her if I did not like it. The petition did not insult her. It simply laid out a timeline of events and asked for a divorce, temporary financial orders, and a custody schedule that would give Mila stability. It mentioned that I had remained calm during public humiliation, that I had continued to provide for our home, and that the child had already started asking about divorce at a young age. It framed the patio scene not as a single explosion, but as part of a pattern of public disrespect. Leah's hand tightened around the paper as she flipped pages. Claudia leaned over her shoulder to read and then looked up at me with wide eyes, as if she genuinely had not expected that my quiet could carry this kind of weight. We stepped outside into the small plaza in front of the courthouse while Leah tried to collect herself. The air was cool, and a few people sat smoking on benches. Leah raised her voice and said that I had betrayed her by going to the law instead of talking more. She said that I was trying to destroy our family because I could not handle a joke. I did not respond to every accusation. I said in a clear tone that I had done exactly what she had shouted on that patio, nothing more and nothing less, and that from now on, the facts on those pages would speak more loudly than any caption or dare. I added that the court would decide what was best for our daughter, not the crowd from a party. Claudia started to argue, but Darren, who had joined them quietly from another entrance, took the petition from her hands and read in silence. His face changed slightly as he moved through the pages. It was the look of a man seeing pieces he had never been shown before. My mother arrived then, coat buttoned, lips pressed together. She did not say much. She simply moved to stand a little behind my shoulder, close enough that I could feel her presence without needing to look. Back inside, the building hummed with low voices. The elevator doors at the far end opened with a clear bell that cut through the noise. A clerk stepped out holding a clipboard and called our names. It was time for the first conference on the temporary orders. Leah still had the petition in her hand, the edges bent slightly from her grip. She looked between me, her parents, and the open elevator with a face that no longer held any trace of the confident joke from the patio. I took one slow breath, feeling it move all the way down to my feet, then straightened my shoulders. Without raising my voice or looking back to see who followed, I walked toward the clerk and the open elevator doors. The bell chimed again as I reached it, and the thin rustle of legal pages followed behind me, the sound of her joke finally turning into something solid and written as the doors slid shut.